Hi everyone, good morning. We are the Group 4 reporters. Lesson 2: The World of Ideas, the Effects of Technology and Society to Science. Human Flourishing, Inclusion of Public Life, Conviviality of Social and Cultural Life, Distributive Justice, and Planetary Environmental Flourishing. Human Flourishing. Human flourishing encompasses the uniqueness, dignity, diversity, freedom, happiness, and holistic well-being of the individual within the larger family, community, and population. Achieving human flourishing is a lifelong existential journey of hopes, achievements, regrets, losses, and illness, suffering, and coping. According to Anthony Bradley in the article on the World Magazine's Rights, an emphasis on human flourishing, ours and others, becomes important because it is characterized by holistic concern of the spiritual, moral, physical, economical, material, political, psychological, and social context necessary for human being to live according to their design. Human flourishing can be translated into Bisaya as paglambo sa kinabuhi sa tao. It refers to the overall well-being and success of an individual in all aspects of life, including physical, emotional, intellectual, social, and spiritual dimensions. Human flourishing versus the progress of science and technology. Science and technology and theology are key elements that contribute to human flourishing. Science, or ciencia, it is broader sense encompasses the whole range of human knowledge. New scientific and spiritual information enable human flourishing to have a better way of life for all humans. Sa madaling salita, ang human flourishing ay tungkol sa pagpapabuti ng kalidad ng buhay ng tao, habang ang progress of science and technology ay tungkol sa pagpapalawak ng kaalaman at teknolohiya. Ang pagkakaroon ng kabutihan ng tao at pag-unlad ng kaalaman at teknolohiya ay maaaring makasulungat sa ilang mga aspeto, at kung minsan ay kailangan nating balansahin ang dalawang ito upang mapanatili ang kabutihan at kasiyahan ng mga tao. The whole range of science and technology examine one or more of the following aspects of human flourishing: the structure of physical world in which we live, the nature of human identity and human mystical experiences, character, information in adverse circumstances, relationship between scriptures and modern scientific knowledge, notion or purpose of biology. Thoughts to ponder. In the succeeding article, John Hickel, and the anthropologist, London School of Economics, criticizes the failure of growth and the development efforts to eradicating poverty 7 decades ago. More importantly, he offers a non-conformist perspective toward growth and development.
Let's continue our discussion. Forget Developing Poor Countries, It's Time to Develop Rich Countries by Jason Hickel. It's time to rethink our approach to development. For too long, the global development agenda has been focused on alleviating poverty in the world's poorest countries, while largely ignoring the wealthy nation of the global north. But if we are to truly achieve global equitable growth, we must shift our focus to achieve developed rich countries, and in particular to tackle and enhance inequality and systematic injustice within. Tackling inequality in rich countries is not only a moral imperative, it is also a practical one. Inequality has been linked to slower economic growth, reduced innovation and entrepreneurship, and reduced social mobility. It is also have a negative impact on public health, increasing the risk of the depression, heart disease, and other illnesses. So, can we be done to develop rich countries? One approach is to implement policies that reduce inequality and boost economic mobility. This could include increasing the minimum wage and strengthening labor protection, as well as tracking down tax avoidance and evasion by wealthy individuals and corporations. It could mean investing more in public services rather, and infrastructure, and providing greater access to social safety such as healthcare, housing, and education. We must also address the underlying structural cause of inequality and justice, such as racism and sexism. And next is na ako'y basahon diri I think this is a article, the Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations New Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, are being launched in New York to eradicate poverty by 2030. Beyond One Direction and Malala are on board. It's said to be a monumental international celebration. It will take 100 years for the world's poorest people is earn 1.25 a day, or kung sa ato is 50 pesos per day. In the past 70 years, despite the fact that it's not working, in 1980, the global economy has grown by 380%, but the number of population living in poverty of illness is 275, or 2.20 pound per day. Okay, bali kung ato i-convert sa ato diri is 219 a day, has increased by more than 1.1 billion. So, as we can see in our country, nagrabi na takahamok almost 113.9 billion. Maong sa panahon ko man, grabe na kainit. Aside sa climate change, nagkahamok na ta ug dili na enough ang carbon na ato ginasingot kay grabe na takahamok. Economists consist that all we need more growth. More progressive type tell us that we need to shift some of the yield of growth from the richer segment of the population to the poorer ones. But currently, the level average of global consumption were overreached. Our planet's biocapacity by more than 50% each year. So, in another word, growth isn't an option anymore because we've already grown too much. Scientists are now telling us that we're blowing past planetary boundaries, and the hard truth is that this global crisis is due entirely to overconsumption in rich countries. So, it is true that global crisis it is due to the overconsumption in rich countries. Yes, because as far as I know, that usually all rich countries have a lot of things that can affect our society, and especially to those poor countries. According to the economist Peter Edward, our guess that instead of pushing poor countries to catch up with rich one, we should focus on getting rich countries to catch down to more appropriate level of development. He suggests that societies where people live long and happy lives at relatively now level of income and consumption should be seen as exemplar of efficient living. The idea of developing rich countries may be difficult to sell to Westerns, but 70% of people in middle and high income countries believe overconsumption is putting our planet and society at risk. The problem is the pundits promoting this kind of transition are using the wrong language, which runs against the deepest frame of human progress and purpose. We need to reorient ourselves toward a positive future, focusing on quality and not quantity. How much is enough? Suggest interventions such as banning advertising, a shorter working week, and a basic income to improve lives while reducing consumption. Either we slow down voluntary or climate change will do it for us. We can go on ignoring the law of nature, but rethinking our theory of progress in ecological imperative and a development one, as if we don't act soon. Poverty will emerge. This is not about giving up, but about reaching a higher level of understanding and consciousness. Are we living a good life? Everyone aims to lead a good life. A happy and contented life varies from person to person. Unique backgrounds, experiences, social context, and even preference make it difficult to subscribe a unified standard on which to tease or tease out a meaning of good life. A good life is subjective and can vary a person to person. Naay mga tao na kontento na sila kung unsa sila or kontento na sila sa ilang life na simple, but while other find fulfillment in more ambitious or endeavor. Ultimately, it is up to you to determine what a good life for you. Living a good life is a choice. The prospect of a standard of a good life is nagdepende sa imong self. Because as a human, if you want to have a good life, maningkamot ka sa imong kaugalingon to do something good. Example, kita as a student, di ba, nag-eskwela ta, kinaatay mga pangandoy. We should work for it. Even it takes you 100 miles. Di ba no, maskin grabe ka lisod, bitaw, maski waya na tay mga allowance, laban gihapon, eskwela gihapon, maski waya na yung mga kaon, hala, laban, kinaaman lagi tay pangandoy. But these dreams is not para sa ato, but also to our families, di ba? So, but sometimes living a good life is a curse. Because nowadays, rich people, ginadaw nila kita na mga pobre because of their wealthiness. Because some people are being abused by the thing that we have now. The question is, are we living a good life? For me, yes, I am living a good life. Although we have a different perspective, but I living a good life. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from my report.
Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics and Good Life. Aristotle, who lived from 384 to 322 BC, is probably the most important ancient Greek philosopher and scientist. He was a student of Plato, who was then a student of Socrates. Together, they were considered as the big three of philosophy. Aristotle was also known as the greatest philosopher who ever lived and the first genuine scientist in history. He made pioneering contributions to all fields of philosophy and science. He invented the field of formal logic, and he identified the various scientific disciplines and explored their relationships to each other. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. The fundamental basis of Aristotelian ethics consists of 10 books. Originally, they were notes written on scrolls when he taught at the Lyceum. It is a wide lecture belief that the lecture notes were compiled by or were dedicated to one of Aristotle's sons. Nicomachus. Alternatively, it is believed that the work was dedicated to Aristotle's father, who was of the same name. Nicomachean Ethics is abbreviated as NE or sometimes EN based on Latin version of the name. It's a treatise on the nature of moral life and human happiness based on the unique essence of man nature. The NE is particularly useful defining what the good life is. Everyone has a definition of what good is getting a college degree. traveling across the world, succeeding in a business venture, pursuing a healthy and active lifestyle, or being a responsible parent. However, although everyone aims to achieve that which is good, Aristotle posited two types of good in a book 2, chapter 2. Aristotle explained that every action aims some good, however, some actions aim at instrumental good, while some aim at eccentric good. He made it clear that the ultimate good is better than the instrumental good, for the latter is good as means to achieving something else or some end, while the former is good in itself. What then is the ultimate good? Based on contrast between two types of good, one could reflect some potential candidates for the ultimate good. One might think that pleasure is the ultimate good. One aims for pleasure in the food they ate or the experience they immerse themselves into. Yet, while pleasure is an important human need, it cannot be the ultimate good. Others might think that wealth is a potential candidate for the ultimate good, but a critique of wealth would prove otherwise. Indeed, many, if not most, aim to be financially stable, to be rich, or to be able to afford a luxurious life. However, it is very common to hear people say that they aim to be wealthy insofar as it would help them achieve some other goals. Another candidate for the ultimate good is fame and honor. Many people seem to be motivated by the desire to be known to be famous. Others strive for honor and recognition. This is reflected to those people who use social media to acquire a large virtual following on the internet and wish to gain a foothold of the benefits that fame brings.
Unlike pleasure, wealth, fame, and honor, happiness is the ultimate good. In the Aristotelian sense, happiness is living well and doing well. Among the Greek, this is known as eudaimonia from the root words eud meaning good and daimon meaning spirit, combining the root words. Eudaimonia means happiness or welfare, more accurately others translate it human flourishing or prosperity. Aristotle proposed two hallmarks of eudaimonia, namely virtue and excellence. Thus, happiness in the sense of eudaimonia has to be distinguished from merely living good. Eudaimonia transcends all aspects of life, for is about living well and doing well in whatever one does, art and human happiness. Hindi tulad ng kasiyahan, kayamanan, katanyagan at karangalan, ang kaligayahan ay ang tunay na kabutihan. Sa Aristotelian na kahulugan, ang kaligayahan ay pamumuhay ng mga mabuti at paggawa ng mabuti. Sa mga Griego, ito ay kilala bilang eudaimonia mula sa mga salitang ugat na iyon na nangungulugang mabuti at daimon na nangangulugan espiritu. Ang pagsasama-sama sa mga salitang ugat, ang ibig sabihin ng eudaimonia ay kaligayahan o kapakanan. Mas tumpak isinasalin ito ng iba bilang pag-unlad o kaunlaran ng tao. Iminungkahi ni Aristotle ang dalawang tanda na eudaimonia. Ang kabutihan ay kahusayan, kaya ang kaligayahan sa kahulugan ng eudaimonia ay kailangang makilala mula sa simpleng pamumuhay ng mabuti. Ang eudaimonia ay lumalampas sa lahat ng aspeto ng buhay dahil ito ay tungkol sa pamumuhay ng maayos at paggagawa ng mabuti sa anumang ginagawa ng isang arit at kaligayahan ng tao. Art and human happiness. Eudaimonia, art, intellectual virtue, moral virtue. Eudaimonia is what defines the good life. To live a good life is to live a happy life. For Aristotle, eudaimonia is only possible by living a life of virtue. Understanding of Aristotle's philosophy of eudaimonia, according to him, eudaimonia which is obtained or kadalasang isinasalin as happiness of flourishing, which is the ultimate goal of human life. However, Aristotle believed that eudaimonia ay nakakamit lamang sa pamamagitan ng paglilinang ng mga bertud such as courage, wisdom, and justice. Sa madaling salita, living a life of virtue is necessary for achieving eudaimonia, which is the ultimate goal of human life. Naniniwala si Aristotle na ang pamumuhay ng usang banal na buhay o virtue life involves finding a balance between excess and deficiency in one's action and emotion of ang balancing ito ay naiiba para sa bawat individual. A Greek term is defined as excellence of any kind and can also mean moral virtue. A virtue is what makes one function well. Aristotle suggested two types of virtue, intellectual virtue and moral virtue. The Greek term you are referring to is arit, which can be translated as excellence for virtue. In ancient Greek philosophy, Aristotle distinguished between two types of virtue, intellectual virtue and moral virtues. Intellectual virtue are acquired through education and involves things like wisdom, understanding, and practical skills. Moral virtue, on the other hand, are acquired through habituation and practice and include traits such as courage, generosity, honesty, and kindness. Aristotle believed that moral virtue are essential for human flourishing and that they help individuals to function well in society. He saw virtue as a mean between two extremes, with each virtue laying at the midpoint between the vice of cowardice and recklessness. Overall, Aristotle believed that the cultivation of both intellectual and moral virtue was essential for leading of a good life and achieving eudaimonia, which can be translated as happiness or flourishing. Grego na iyong tinutukoy ay arit na maaaring isaling bilang kahusayan o kabutihan sa sinaunang pilosopiyang Grego. Nakilala ni Aristotle ang dalawang uri ng bertud, intellectual na bertud at moral na bertud. Ang mga intellectual na bertud ay nakukuha sa pamamagitan ng edukasyon at kinabibilangan ng mga bagay tulad ng katarungan, pangunawa at praktikal na mga kasanayan. Ang moral na bertud sa kabilang banda ay nakukuha sa pamamagitan ng habituation at pagsasanay at kasama ang mga katangian tulad ng katapangan, pagkabukas palad, katapatan at kabaitan. Naniniwala si Aristotle na ang mga moral na virtue ay mahalaga para sa pag-unlad ng tao at ang mga ito ay tumutulong sa mga individual na gumana ng maayos sa lipunan.
Now let's proceed to the intellectual virtue. Intellectual virtue, meaning to say mo ni ang paghasa or pagbait or virtual or of truth taught your mentality. So meaning to say mauni ang mga quality sa mga good learners or good thinkers, just like among kaisipan. Maoy mag-guide sa imo through ethical behavior ug sa mga pagsabot, and also makuha nimo ni intellectual virtue through education. Kaysa education makabayo ta what is wrong, what is right, all through time. Because of time ma-explore nimo what truth or experience through wisdom, but wisdom is different for academic. For example, like curiosity. Curious ka sa mga butang, like gusto nimo mangutana isang kinsa. Moral virtue or virtue of character is achieved through habitual practice. Some key moral virtue are generosity, temperance, and courage. Aristotle explained what truth the capacity for intellectual virtue is innate. It's brought into completion only the practice. It is by repeatedly being unselfish that one develop the virtue of generosity. When we say moral virtue, disposition to behave in the right manner sa atong mga pamatasan. So, we learn moral virtue pinaagi sa atong mga habit o ma-practice sa nato ni pamaagi sa truth reasoning and introduction. It is brought into completion only by practice. It is by repeatedly being unselfish that one's develop the virtue of generosity. When we say generosity, ito po yung bukas palad kaw sa tanan, like
Technology
dili kaw
as
mutabang sa mga
humanity,
tao.
human rights in the face of scientific and technological advancement are critical factors in one's journey toward eudaimonia or the good life. Increasing the rights to accept or reject, maximize and evaluate and deeds on the scope and function of science and technology indicates human flourishing in science and technology. Labi na ron nga halos high-tech na ang mga tao, halos tanan technology sa ato. The idea that new technologies can liberate us from the human edition is the fantasy. In reality, in 21st century will be all true human. Unsa ka importante ang technology to humanity? Our technology has a profound on every aspect of our lives. The day we live, the way nga kita makig-interact mabag-o through technology, especially or labi na sa friends or education pareha sa ato kuman. Atong proseso sa pag-eskwela is through medicine, transportation, atong economy, and even communication and politics. And when we say humanity is from the Latin word humanitas, which means human nature, to kindness. It also a word for qualities nga mahitabo ta as human nga ability nato nga maghigugma na atay compassion, be creative, kay dili man ta robot or alien. Because the purpose of technology of humanity is to solve human problem. Oy tay advantage and disadvantage sa technology. So the advantage of technology is man become advised and paisag communicate is dili na siya lisod bisan pa og layo ka or layo imong pamilya, becomes easier, faster tungod sa mobile phones or any technology, and this increase the standard of living. Then, traveling has become faster than before kaysa una jeep, kalisa, or tricycle pa ang karon na develop no ang tricycle nga transportation na may lansa, pambot, ug uban pa. Pero naapay disadvantage sab. Humans had misused the technology and used in damaging purpose dita ug dili nato magamit sa sakto pwede ni makadaot sa ato. By the use of technology, man is doing things. Mahalatag di og linis salmo og dili kaw kabayo mo limit sa imong gas. Is Romy Mukherjee. He is a sociologist and historian of religion, a senior lecturer sa political theory ug sa history of religion that he explains about the human rights based to approach to science, technology, and development. According to Isromi Mukherjee, seeks to preserve a human concern for human rights to the heart of the international communication engaged with urgent global challenge. Mukherjee, further that is approach nag-identify nga social organized human activity which is value leading the shape of organization structures and procedures. More once it requires an answer to her government and other structures can craft and implement science and technology listed that ensure safety, healthy, and livelihood, include people's needs and priorities on development and environment strategies, and ensure that they in decision making that affect their lives and requires.
Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 27. This document affirms everyone's right to participate in and benefit from scientific advances and be protected from scientific misuses. Ini daw na dokumento nagpapatunay na ang lahat ay may karapatan na lumahok ang benepisyo mula sa scientific advances at maging protektado mula sa scientific misuses o maling paggamit. So, UNESCO Recommendation on the Status of Scientific Researchers, 1974. This document affirms that all advances in scientific and technological knowledge should solely be geared towards the welfare of the global citizens and calls upon member states of development necessary protocol and policies to monitor and secure this object. This document nagpapatunay na ang lahat na pagsulong in scientific and technological na kaalaman dapat nag-iisa lang at nakatuon patungo sa global citizens. Ang tinawag sa member states para bumuo ng necessary protocol and policies to monitor at upang ligtas ito na layunin. So, UNESCO Declaration on the Use of Scientific Knowledge, 1999, Article 33. This document states, today, more than ever, science and its application are indispensable for development. So ngayon, at higit sa kailanman, science and its application ay kailangan para sa kaunlaran ng lahat ng level ng gobyerno ang pribado sektor dapat magbigay enhancement support for building para sa sapat na pantay ang ipinamahagi ng scientific and technological na kapasidad. A human rights-based approach to science, technology, and development sets the parameters for the appraisal of how science, technology, and development promote human well-being. Thus, the discussion of human rights in the face of changing scientific and technological context must not serve as merely decorative moral dimension of scientific and technological policies. As Mukherjee 2012 posted, this approach can from the very heart of sustainable futures. So, ang human rights kuno ay karapatan ng lahat ng tao at nakabatay ito upang lapitan ang science, technology, and development sets parameters para sa pagtatasa ng paano ng science technology upang kaunlaran ay itaguyod at ang taong mahusay at pagiging ganito talakayan ng karapatan ng tao ang mukha ng nagbabago pang-agham at teknolohikal na konteksto dapat hindi maglingkod lamang decorative at moral na sukat ng scientific and technological na mga karapatan as Mukherjee at nakaposisyon ito na lapitan at maari anyo ang napakapuso ng napapanatili ng hinaharap. Act number 10173 approved on January 6, 2012. This law is known as the Data Privacy Act of 2012. So, ito na batas ay inaprubahan on January 6, 2012. Ito daw na batas ay kilala as the Data Privacy Act of 2012. 87 Constitution, which stipulates that the state shall protect and advance the rights of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology with the rhythm or nature. Ang estado ay dapat protektahan at sumulong ng tama upang ang mga tao ay balanse at nakapagpapalusog ng ekolohiya kasama ang rhythm ng nature or kalikasan. Agency Committee on Climate Change, which aimed at harnessing and synergizing the various activities undertaken by the national government and civil society in response to the crisis posed by the growing problem on climate change. So, nagtatalayong nag-harness and synergizing ang iba-iba ang mga aktibidad at isinagawa ang national government and civil o lipunan tugon ng krisis pos and lumaki ang problema sa climate change. Act 8749 Clean Air Act of 1990 that moves for an effective air quality management program that will mitigate the worsening problem of air pollution in the country. So ito nagmagalaw daw ay mabisa na hangin na kalidad na pamahala ng programa na magpapagaan ang lumalalang problema na air pollution in the country. Public Act number 8435 Agriculture and Forestry Modernization Act of 1997 states that the Department of Agriculture or DA should take into account climate change, weather disturbance, and annual productivity cycle in order to forecast and formulate appropriate agricultural and fisheries programs. So, Estado and Departamento ng Agrikultura dapat kunin ito account climate change kung kaguluhan kaguluhan on taunang pagiging produkto cycle in order to pagtataya and bumalangkas sa angkop na pang-agricultural and fisheries program.
Republic Act 9003, Solid Waste Management Act 2000. Solid Waste Management Act 2000 is collecting, treating, and disposing of solid material that is discarded because it has served its purpose or is no longer useful. It is aimed on providing a comprehensive solution to the country's garbage problem. This act ang paghatag og komprehensibong solusyon problema sa basura sa atong nasod. Republic Act 9275, Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004, moves for a comprehensive water quality management. This act provides for the abatement and control of pollution from land-based source and lays down water quality standards and regulation, and shall apply to water quality management in all water bodies, sprays, brackish, and marine waters. Administrative Order 171/2007 created Presidential Task Force on Climate Change or PTFCC to address and mitigate the impact of climate change in the Philippines. This act ay nagsasaad ng mga pangunahing prinsipyo ng patakaran sa pagbabago ng klima, karaniwan ngunit nagkakaibang mga responsibilidad or mga layunin ng UNFCCC or United Nations Framework Convention or Climate Change. Republic Act 9729, Climate Change Act of 2009, systematized and integrated the concept of climate change in the policy, formulation, and development play of all government agencies and units to prepare the government for the impact of climate change. This act is sistematikong pagsasamahin ang konsepto ng pagbabago ng klima sa iba't ibang yugto ng pagbabalangkas at patakaran ng mga plano sa pagpapaunlad, mga estratehiya sa pagbabawas ng kahirapan at iba pang mga kasangkapan at pamaraan sa pag-unlad ng lahat ng ahensya at instrumentalidad ng pamahalaan. Philippine Climate Change Commission or PCC, mauni ang isa sa paggawa ng patakaran ng pamahalaan na inatasang makipag-ugnayan at suriin ang mga programa at plano pagkilos ng gobyerno na may kaugnayan sa pagbabago ng klima, alinsunod sa mga probensyon ng Philippine Climate Change. Natural Framework Strategy on Climate Change 2010 and 2022, committed towards ensuring and strengthening the adaptation of our natural ecosystem and human communities to climate change. Ang layunin daw ng NFSCC ay bumuo ng kakayahang umangkop ng mga komunidad at pataasin ang katatagan ng mga natural na ecosystem sa pagbago at ng klima at i-optimize ang mga pagkakataon sa pagpapatungo sa napapanatiling pag-unlad. In order to facilitate the saving elements of technology, humanity is encouraged to invest on our ability and willingness to consider the unfolding of technology with a critical eye. This means that as humans, we cannot simply allow the technology to order or command us. Instead, we remain aware of the saving power of technology while remaining cautious of the danger of technology which threatens us with the possibility that is rebelling. If this is the case, where do we go from here? Are we pushing forward for a negative understanding of technology? There are two possible directions in responding to modern technology. One of the one hand, the question according to Heidegger, the frenziedness of ordering the blocks every view into the relation to the essence of truth. On the other hand, it allows humanity to escape the essence of truth. Heidegger claims that the technology once shared the root technique with a broader practice of poiesis. Technology brought forth an aesthetic of the fine arts. It is the realm of the arts, therefore that we can practice the questioning of technology in the hope of revealing the truth, which modern technology habitually concept truth, the order of impulse of the world. Heidegger, inaangkin ni Heidegger na minsang ibinahagi ng teknolohiya ang root technique sa isang mas malawak na kasanayan at teknolohiya na proses na inilabas. Ito ay nasa barangan ng sining kung kaya't maaari tayong magsanay na pagtatanong sa teknolohiya sa pag-asang maihayag ang katotohanan ng nakagawian na makabagong teknolohiya sa pamamagitan ng pagkakasunod-sunod na ipinataw nito sa salita.